All right, Lucas. Hello. I hope you're doing well. And this is my evaluation of your first draft from week 5. So let's see how you did with this. So first of all, as I can tell here, you chose to use APA, so that's great. And everything on your title page looks just fine. Looks very good. So, and you also put the title here, so that's good. The exemplar doesn't show you to do that, so I appreciate that you somehow knew how to do that or figured it out. Very good. All right, let's see how you did with these different parts here. So, first thing we're looking for is the topic. In today's busy world, people often work long hours focused on school and personal tasks without taking time to rest. The article, Take a Break. Today's busy world. So that today's busy world kind of alludes to the historical and cultural, so that I can give you credit for that. You touched on her purpose right here. You mentioned the purpose is, so that's good. So let me get back to this. So, um, the topic centers on how short breaks can improve. There you go. You clearly define the topic. Pelusi uses a practical, informative genre to give clear advice. So you're making sure you're making it clear that you got all those parts in there. So that's actually pretty good because you're still doing it at least in the form of an essay, and that's good. Now make sure you let the exemplar maybe show you how to weave that in a little bit less obvious maybe, but it is okay that you're doing that. That's not a bad thing, especially here in the first draft. Um, so Pelusi uses a practical and informative genre to give clear advice. This choice allows her to reach a wide audience and provide actionable guidance. The purpose is to show that breaks are not wasted time, but a key part of staying effective and healthy. All right, so you got these elements in here. That's great, and everything is working together. That's what this is about. You do have some historical referencing there, so that's good. I think your core idea comes out in what you've written here as well. One thing I will suggest though is for the final project, make sure that you have, because remember this part one. That's why it's labeled part one for first audience, is because this will be your final project. Will not this week, but next week will be combining. This will be part one of your final project, and then what you'll do is you'll rewrite this article or your analysis here. You'll adapt it, not necessarily rewrite the whole thing, obviously, but you'll adapt it to a second chosen audience, right? So that will be part two of the final project. So make sure you understand you'll be using this again, and so that's why you want to make sure you revise it, and you want to have a solid thesis statement based on the way the exemplar shows, because this thesis statement, while you've got good points here, you don't really have that solid thesis statement that the exemplar shows you to do. So you got to make sure you try to fix that. All right, part one. Excuse me. Pelusi writes for general audience, including where anyone feeling okay. So now what you should be doing though is you should be talking about who your audience is. Yes, she writes for that audience, but you need to be addressing your own new, different audience. Okay, so do you do that here? Uh, Now this is more general. You're not really narrowing it down to the specific audience you want to address. So that's something you got to make sure you do here early on, if not in the introduction, right here in the beginning here. You should be talking about who you are writing for. So you might start this by, for example, you might start this by saying something like, while Pelusi writes for a general audience, such as workers and students, comma, this article would also be very useful and important for blank, and that blank would be your chosen audience. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to at some point here you want to tell your audience, clearly tell your audience who your audience is, and that's actually that actually is right here. That actually is going to reduce this a little bit because you don't really tell who your specific audience is. So that's going to take a little bit off of there. Not a lot, but a little bit. So, details. You do have details. You make points here, which is what the details are. Shows that taking breaks can reduce stress, increase creativity, and improve focus. The article explains that breaks allow, and then there's your quote. So you've got details, your quotes are your evidence. So you've got both of those, and you've properly cited that, so that's awesome. Great job with that. Something that you want to consider, though, well, it's okay for the way you've done that. Don't be afraid to use Pelusi's name occasionally in your signal phrases too. And if you use Pelusi's name in the signal phrase, then you would put Pelusi 2010 in parentheses there, and then the only thing that would be in this closing parentheses would be the page number, right? So that just if you need to refer to this exemplar to see how that kind of stuff looks. Okay. Historical and cultural context of the article reflects the early 2010s, but again, you're talking about your current audience, so this needs to be clarified who your audience is and what your modern culture is, okay? You allude to that up here when you say in today's busy world, but here it seems like you're backtracking a little bit and talking about a little bit more about what the article, what she did in the article, and who her audience was, and what her context was. So that's something you don't really want to do that. You want to be keeping this all about your new audience, your specific audience, and how they can benefit from what Pelusi has said in her article. Okay, so that's going to take some work to change that so that you're writing more to your new audience rather than about what her chosen audience was. Okay. Okay, so again, just use the exemplar. That's kind of where I'm going to leave it. The exemplar is where you really need to make sure you touch on that, make your communication as to who you're talking to and everything more clear. Your citations are actually very good, so I can give you full credit on those. So good job, very good start. This needs to be more detailed. There should be more to it than just that. If nothing else, there ought to be a URL or something in here. But what you need to do is after the take a break title, there should be the actual source you found it in. So in order to do that, you'll need to go into the article again and see who it was written for. In other words, what journal or whatever was it written for, or news magazine or whatever. And you need to put that there, and then you need to put a URL. Okay, so that will do it for this video. As always, if you have questions, need help with anything, let me know. And I will. You've done a great job, obviously, here to start with. Just make sure you fix everything I've noted so that you'll have because obviously it's going to be the gradings will be more particular in the final project in week 7. So you're going to make sure you fix all those things I've noted, because even though you got a 95 here, the things I've noted, if they're absent from that final project, it could bring that grade down somewhat. So you want to make sure you do cover all that stuff and fix all those things I've noted. I'm also going to attach down here the exemplar so that you can make sure you follow it closely and use it. All right, that will do it for this video. As always, if you have questions or need help, let me know.